This episode of the Story Cottage is brought to you by our friends at Domestic Dominion, the Kings Ridge Elderberries, and our supporters on Buzzsprout. Go to thestorycottage.buzzsprout.com or click the Support the Show link in the show notes and subscribe for just $5 a month to get every episode ad-free. And now, on with the show. Fairy tales, folklore, myths, and legends. Why do children need them? Why do nations and peoples create them? Who knows? Maybe some of them are real. Maybe some are merely imaginative. Is there a hidden wisdom worth finding in these tall tales? Proverbs 1:5-6 says, "Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance, to understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles." We're your hosts, Jerry and Amy Davidson. Welcome to the Story Cottage. Please step inside. It was dreadfully cold. It was snowing fast and almost dark. The evening, the last evening of the old year, was drawing in. But cold and dark as it was, a poor little girl with bare head and feet was still wandering about the streets. When she left her home, she had slippers on, but they were much too large for her. Indeed, really, they belonged to her mother, and had dropped off her feet while she was running very fast across the road to get out of the way of two carriages. One of the slippers was not to be found. The other had been snatched up by a little boy, who ran off with it thinking it might serve him as a doll's candle. So the little girl walked on, her bare feet quite red and blue with the cold. She carried a small bundle of matches in her hand, and a good many more in her tattered apron. No one had bought any of them the livelong day. No one had given her a single penny. Trembling with cold and hunger, she crept on, the picture of sorrow, poor little child. The snowflakes fell on her long, fair hair, which curled in such pretty ringlets over her shoulders, but she thought not of her own beauty, nor of the cold. Lights were glimmering through every window, and the savor of roast goose reached her from several houses. It was New Year's Eve, and it was of this that she thought. In a corner formed by two houses, one of which projected beyond the other, she sat down, drawing her little feet close under her, but in vain, she could not warm them. She dared not go home. She had sold no matches, earned not a single penny, and perhaps her father would beat her. Besides, her home was almost as cold as the street. It was an attic, and although the larger of the many chinks in the roof were stopped up with straws and rags, the wind and snow often came through. Her hands were nearly dead with cold. One little match from her bundle would warm them perhaps, if she dare light it. She drew one out and struck it against the wall. Bravo! It was a bright, warm flame, and she held her hands over it. It was quite an illumination for that poor little girl. Nay, call it rather a magic taper, for it seemed to her as though she were sitting before a large iron stove with brass ornaments. So beautifully blazed the fire within. The child stretched out her feet to warm them also. Alas, in an instant the flame had died away. The stove vanished. The little girl sat cold and comfortless, with the burnt match in her hand.
Honey! I need help!
Why? What's wrong?
There are dragons in our laundry and dishwasher!
Hang on, dear. I'm getting my sword.
No, wait. These dragons cannot be killed by a sword.
They've never tasted my blade.
I know, but all we need to kill these dragons is detergent from Domestic Dominion.
Okay, then we must make haste. How do we get some?
By going to domestic-dominion.com and entering code STORY. Ladies, our husbands are great for so many things, including slaying the run-of-the-mill dragons. But sometimes there are monsters that sneak through even the best defenses, like the toxins and chemicals in your laundry and dish detergents. And often, those supposedly clean detergents at the store are just pretty little poisoned apples. That's where Domestic Dominion can help. They're a small, family-owned and operated Christian business whose mission is to create clean, natural, quality products that aid the homemaker and create a culture of joy, health, and stewardship to the glory of God. They value the Lord and therefore value their products. All their products are effective and made with only 4 ingredients. Each product is non-toxic, pH balanced, and contains no surfactants, fragrances, or chemicals. They leave no chemical residue, and their laundry detergent is safe to use on any kind of clothing. We use their products in our home, and let me tell you, every load comes out smelling the way Cinderella's dress looks. With Domestic Dominion, you'll have a ball doing laundry. Go to their website, domestic-dominion.com, or click the link in the show notes. And use code STORY for 20% off your first order. And be sure to check out their aprons, linen covers, and anti-feminist stickers while you're there. That's domestic-dominion.com and use code STORY for 20% off your first order.
Tired of evil fairies using cold and flu season to turn you and your children into ogres every year? Yeah, me too. This cold and flu season, fortify your defenses naturally with the King's Ridge elderberry syrup and elderberry products. They grow the freshest elderberries on their Indiana farm, hand-pick and cold-press them into the tastiest syrup around. And they are packed with antioxidants and vitamins to boost your immune system. Defend the castle of your family's health. Use code STORY10 for 10% off your first order at tkrfarm.com. The King's Ridge elderberry syrup. Taste the difference. Help push back the curse. That's tkrfarm.com and use code STORY10 for 10% off your first order. A second match was struck against the wall. It kindled and blazed, and wherever its light fell, the wall became transparent as a veil. The little girl could see into the room within. She saw the table, spread with a snow-white damask cloth, whereon were ranged shining china dishes. The roast goose, stuffed with apples and dried plums, stood at one end, smoking hot, and, which was pleasantest of all to see, the goose, with knife and fork still in her breast, jumped down from the dish and waddled along the floor right up to the poor child. Then the match went out, and only the thick, hard wall was beside her. She kindled a third match. Again up shot the flame, and now she was sitting under a most beautiful Christmas tree, far larger and far more prettily decked out than the one she had seen last Christmas Eve through the glass doors of the rich merchant's house. Hundreds of wax tapers lighted up the green branches, and tiny painted figures, such as she had seen in the shop windows, looked down from the tree upon her. The child stretched out her hands toward them in delight, and in that moment the light of the match was quenched. Still, however, the Christmas candles burned higher and higher. She beheld them beaming like stars in heaven. One of them fell, the light streaming behind it like a long, fiery tail.
"Now someone is dying,"
said the little girl softly, for she had been told by her old grandmother, the only person who had ever been kind to her and who was now dead, that whenever a star falls, an immortal spirit returns to God who gave it. She struck yet another match against the wall. It flamed up, and surrounded by its light appeared before her that same dear grandmother, gentle and loving as always, but bright and happy as she had never looked during her lifetime.
"Grandmother!"
exclaimed the child.
"Oh, take me with you. I know you will leave me as soon as the match goes out. You will vanish like the warm fire in the stove, like the splendid New Year's feast, like the beautiful large Christmas tree."
And she hastily lighted all the remaining matches in the bundle, lest her grandmother should disappear. And the matches burned with such a blaze of splendor that noonday could scarcely have been brighter. Never had the good old grandmother looked so tall and stately, so beautiful and kind. She took the little girl in her arms, and they both flew together. Joyfully and gloriously they flew, higher and higher, till they were in that place where neither cold, nor hunger, nor pain is ever known. They were in paradise. But in the cold morning hour, crouching in the corner of the wall, the poor little girl was found, her cheeks glowing, her lips smiling, frozen to death on the last night of the old year. The New Year's sun shone on the lifeless child. Motionless, she sat there with the matches in her lap, one bundle of them quite burnt out.
Well, she's been trying to warm herself, poor thing,
the people said, but no one knew of the sweet visions she had beheld, or how gloriously she and her grandmother were celebrating their New Year's festival.
All right, welcome to episode 8 of The Story Cottage. Certainly one of the sadder stories out there, but let's ask our questions. What sort of values do we see in the characters in this story?
Well, first, the little match girl values her grandmother most of all, even after she has died.
Yeah. Second, we see that the people who pass her by as the girl tries to sell them matches value their own preoccupations rather than taking the time to observe this poor little girl in front of them and be helpful or generous. They are preoccupied with getting out of the cold maybe themselves or even just getting to where they are going. So second question, what can you learn to apply these things in your daily life?
The little match girl's grandmother is described as the only person who is ever kind to her. As sad as that is, it demonstrates how important it is to be kind to others, especially your own family. We can often take our own siblings and family members for granted and be very mean to them. We often think, oh, they're family. They'll be around no matter what I do. But the truth is, we owe extra kindness to our own family. Being kind to others is a lot easier and a lot of fun when you've practiced being kind to your own family first. So be kind and gentle. You never know how much of a guiding light you can be to someone just by being a godly, kind person to them.
It's so true. And also be generous to others. Generosity hurts sometimes. It is usually inconvenient and it takes practice. You must train your mind to find opportunities to be generous, but it is something God tells us to do, and it is good for your soul. 2 Corinthians 9:7 and 11 says, quote, "Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." And verse 11, "You will be enriched in every way to be generous in every way, which through us will produce thanksgiving to God." And I think we'll end there.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for listening to this episode, and we can't wait to see you next time.
We'll see you guys then.
Toodaloo.
Thank you for joining us here at the Story Cottage. If you liked what you heard, smash that follow button and leave us a 5-star review. It tremendously helps with the algorithms so folks like you can find us. Go to thestorycottage.buzzsprout.com or click the Support the Show link in the show notes to subscribe for $5 a month to get every episode ad-free. And follow us on X, Instagram, or Facebook. And please, join us next time.